Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. As always, DGI-425, and I have my co-anchor Sridhar Tityalaji joining me. Sridharji, Namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskar. Good morning to everybody. Namaskara.
Sridharji, I'm baffled. OPEC now wants to cut output, including Russia. So they want the crude to go back up close to 100. I thought 75 was the price that Saudi Arabia liked because essentially it's Saudi Arabia which calls the shots. Can I decode the geopolitics behind this, sir?
The geopolitics behind this is very simple. $75 is probably the break-even point. They would like the price to be around the 80 to 85. That's number one. Number two, this is the best way to pay back the coin, both by Russia as well as the Saudi Arabias. So what do? You choke production, or you cut the production, which naturally increases the oil prices in the market. Number three, if 44% was the Russia supply to Europe, which got down to 4%, we showed the graph, then it is Russia's turn working with the Saudis to pay back to the Americans. So this is what is going on. They recognize that this is one of the significant core personal expenditure, or CPE drivers, inflation. So it means that Dr. Jerome Powell is not going to rest because his inflation number is going to continue to go up, Sriji. This is the geopolitics. It's the weaponization of oil, which in turn feeds into the global inflation.
But Sridharji, it also benefits the US petroleum companies, isn't it? I mean, because now US is exporting hand over fist to Europe.
It is maybe exporting, but we are a bleeding balance sheet. So to some extent, it offsets. But what does it do to the consumer? The consumer's balance sheet is bleeding. No longer he has all those COVID money. By the end of the year, the COVID money is going to run out. But you're going to have $4 to $4.50 to $5 at the pumps. And United States, we are the biggest gas guzzlers in the world. So it's going to hurt. Without gas, we can't travel anyway. So it's just going to hurt the US consumer very badly, Sriji.
We'll watch that situation closely. In the meanwhile, today Trump has to show up in that court where he has been indicted, and a lot of activities expected to happen. On the one side, you have all this happening. On the other side, some very significant statements have been made by like Mark Milley, the general who's the commander of all three forces, as well as many other personalities. Sridharji, give us a quick rundown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the big things happening in US before we go on to more significant things like such as in India.
Okay, so I think the first and foremost, now the truth has come out that the balloon that flew right across United States, which was taken out around the Carolinas, did pick up information and did transmit information to China. That information is coming out through investigations. The Biden administration did its best effort to kind of not to get this information out, but it has come out. So questions are being raised. Why did the administration allow the balloon to fly right across before it was taken out? So just closely following on that, you also had a briefing by Mark Milley, the General Chief of Armed Services, or the Chief of Staff for all the three branches. He made a statement that a lot of the rhetoric that you are seeing from China is from CCP, but there is not an imminent war. This is exactly opposite to what the Chinese are thinking. And this is in his address to some of the House and the Senate members. This was rebuked to say that Mark Milley is making a light work based on all the stuff that is going on. While this is going on, the Department of Defense has also done an assessment and investigation of the Chinese cranes that are in the ports. 70% of the ports around the world have this from Shenzhen, Zenhua manufactured cranes. These are large cranes which moves cargo from shore to port, from the ships to the port. And apparently they are capable of disseminating information and providing sensitive information of the type of the cargoes, including, some of these ports have also got military capabilities around and transmit. And these engineers come and spend once in 2 years. So this information has been revealed, and saying potentially there's a looming danger. The Chinese have obviously dismissed, but they're very much present within the footprint. The last piece, when you to conclude the China part within the United States, is the drug supplies. The China is an integral part of, Josh Hawley has been saying this for quite some time, integral part of the medical supply chain. And today we have significant drug shortages in the United States, close to 30 to 35% of the general drugs, and some of the critical drugs like cancer treatment, anesthetics, etc. It's probably in a very high number. And they say that this is also another issue that one can point, take it back. So China is trying to strangle United States in a number of ways, but we have an administration which seems totally oblivious and more focused on the woke as well as the Trump drama, Sriji.
Sridharji, the ongoing investigation into the Biden family kickback from China, that has been happening. Cathay Bank, for example, has given money to one of their associates. I think his name is Ken something. I don't remember the exact name. And it was 3 million kickbacks. The 3 million was supposed to be distributed, 1 million to Joe Biden, 1 million to Jim Biden, and 1 million to Holly Biden, who was the wife of Beau Biden, who since then passed away. So this is just the first of 11 tranches, and we don't know what are the amounts involved of the remaining 10 tranches. Any update on that, sir?
No, everything has receded into a backseat with this Trump drama. The mainstream media pushing the Trump drama to the kind
diversionary tactic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tactic. No, the two important things. Remember you forgot we covered in DGI the January 6th, how they kind of successfully played that out when everybody knew that it was a fake.
Right? Everybody remembered one magic word: insurrection.
Insurrection. Choreographed, great drama enacted by the Democrats in the House. The other thing that has also been put behind the back burner is 20 people within Biden administration directing the tech media to take out any kind of sentiments that are against the government policies. That's also been pushed back. So there's a lot of items, including the border, the infiltration that continues, the border issues. So what is, put all of them in the back burner and put Trump in the front and, make this into a grand show. And this is what is going on. And you can witness, the world can witness what is happening within United States in terms of, if I have to use the word, self-destruction.
Yes, indeed. And let's take a quick look at other things happening around the world. First of all, there are war clouds looming across India's borders. About 1 million Chinese troops are now feared that they have amassed across the LAC, comprising of 3,500 kilometers. This is a major flashpoint. We don't know when that's going to, flare up and where. And now China has issued a statement saying that several of the villages inside Arunachal Pradesh have Chinese or / Tibetan names, and that these belong to China. This is the first one that I think they are going to try and make noise out of. There's also a bigger critical problem with Bhutan. Sridharji, kind of give us a little bit of a rundown. Where is it going to attack, sir? You still think it is going to be Senkaku area or it's going to be in India?
No, there are two simultaneous. As far as Senkaku is concerned, that is with regard to Taiwan. Whether they will go mainland Taiwan, or whether they will cherry pick the easy target. They have cut cables around the islands which are very close to Taiwan, and there's no internet connection. Mainly tourists visit that around Taiwan, and then I believe that the Senkaku would be one of the first targets they would pick up. That's the easy target. Now, that is not to say that it is one or the other. You can see that there are 4 different flashpoints they're concurrently working on. So India is always in the front burner to them, because India to them poses the biggest kind of a threat in terms of their unilateral and ubiquitous economic power and military power around Asia. They do not see That is why when many people say, India will somehow work with the Chinese and maybe they work with Russians, but India will work with the Chinese, I just don't see it, because fundamental underlying tensions are so huge in terms of China and India. China is not letting down. The point that you made around the LAC, they have been persistently at it. With regard to Bhutan, that you mentioned, they somehow hoodwinked the prime minister, but the king of Bhutan and his minister for external affairs is right now in India at the request of India and having discussions. It's quite obvious this particular statement, influenced by the Chinese, triggered India to call, though they say that it was a visit that was long in the offing. So India is getting its act together as far as, India has always got its act together as far as Bhutan is concerned. They've been working at it. But there is clearly war clouds, and this will probably, before the end of the year, we will see a flashpoint again emerging, Sriji, in the LAC.
And on an unrelated note, I wanted to tell our viewers the update on what is happening in the San Francisco consulate. Things have quietened down. There used to be a tent for about 2 to 3 weeks, protesting, shouting at people, especially abusing the consulate officials and so on and so forth as they were going in and coming out. There are some strict laws in San Francisco City that prevent these protesters from being further out from the consulate. Long story short, finally, I'm hearing that all the tents have been cleared. And to my pleasant surprise, on Sunday, I had the opportunity of being part of a Sita Rama Kalyanam, and some government officials were visiting there, and we were fearing the worst, whether these protesters will show up there also to create, disturbance. Luckily, nothing happened. I'm not saying luckily. There is a cause and effect. There is some clampdown clearly happening right now. I thank the authorities for promptly acting. Today, I'm going to try and beam live around 5 p.m. Pacific, which is around 5:30 a.m. India time. I'm going to try and beam live what's going to be happening in front of Senator Wahab's office. She's a state senator of California. She's introducing this SB 403 caste resolution. It has jumped through the first few hoops. It's in the Judiciary Committee. That's going to be happening on the 18th of April, but we are now beginning to create awareness. I'll be covering that event. Who's there? What is the atmosphere there? Whether she's going to come out and give a statement as to what she's done. Does she even understand what caste is? She's from Afghanistan. Why she's wading into all this? Every interesting thing. Also, very interesting stuff coming out of the case against Cisco by the California Race something CRD. They changed their name itself. Lots of corruption charges against the department that was pursuing the case. The case has been badly damaged as far as the Equality Labs and the CRD are concerned. Castgate.org. Very easy to remember. Go and read that article. It's a huge compendium of data. Just do follow that. I just wanted to say all these things that yes, people are acting quietly in the background and a lot of things are falling in place. I would urge the state senator to withdraw that bill because it is based on flimsy ground. It's going to blow up on her face. She's got a long career to go. She needs to think about that. I'm just being a nice person here and telling what are the consequences of a flawed legislation. Let's move on, sir. Sridharji, India, Japan collaborating on Sri Lanka. So this is again the same axis coming back. How is Japan and India going to be helping Sri Lanka in some of their infrastructural projects at the same time as part of Quad fortification, if you will? Please take it away, sir.
Well, I think that there are two strategic moves when Mr. Kishida was in India. And more news beginning to come out. One is they agreed to cooperate with, they see Sri Lanka as a very strategic element of the Indo-Pacific strategy, and as well as the broad Indian Ocean agenda that both are very cognizant of, especially Chinese footprint. So they didn't get the eastern container, but they got the western container port, Colombo, development. So on the back of it, they want to build infrastructure and connectivity into Indo-Pacific, logistics and supply chains out of that, as well as provide much needed capital support to the Sri Lankans. So Sri Lankans have embraced it, and it was a three-country joint statement, so that augurs well. I think same thing with Bangladesh. I think it's the Chattogram, or maybe spelling it incorrectly. The Bangladesh port is also being developed by Japan. This would help. The Japan-Bangladesh-India collaboration would help India to basically mitigate the bottleneck that could emerge potentially because of the rising tensions in the Doklam area, especially the Chicken Neck. So they believe that this partnership would help to mitigate, as well as the broader the Bay of Bengal agenda and connectivity into Indian Ocean and Indo-Pacific programs. So Japan is clearly putting money and raising its stake and considers India as an invaluable partner. Very strategic development as far as India is concerned, Sriji.
Thank you very much, sir. And we are also predicting, Sridharji is predicting, that before the actual war breaks out in Asia, there will be an internal war within the United States itself, using the Chinese surrogates who are in place. We've been saying about this, how many have entrenched themselves, embedded themselves as part of many organizations. Sridharji, please touch upon this, sir.
Well, I think the intelligence, again, the report is revealing that the way US attack will begin is that they have access to power stations, power grids, some very key infrastructure. We touched on supply chains on the medical. We touched on the cranes which move most important elements from a trade point of view, supply. So in addition to that, they believe there has been progressive influx of people, Chinese-speaking people around the country, and in what form, what type of issues they will create, we don't know. But this is, there's wide and wild speculations. But even setting that aside, there's enough data to point out. Remember, China has also now got a partnership with Argentina. China has a partnership with Venezuela. China has a partnership with Bolivia. So these are all adjacent nations where you are beginning to see the Chinese footprint. So you can see already the moves that are happening around United States. Clearly, China sees United States as the broad, big challenge that it faces around the world. And this is not a very great news, especially when the present administration priorities seems to be on the wrong side of the fence.
Sir, let us take a quick look at what is happening in India. India's foreign exchange reserves rise by 8 billion to 578 billion on the back of positive inflows. India's defense exports reaches an all-time high of 15,920 crores, divided by 8 for getting the number in billions, you guys. And India's global trade will exceed 1.6 trillion for fiscal year 23, with 770 billion exports and 820 billion of imports, and a trade deficit of 50 billion. So India is still a net importer, Sridharji. When that changes, do you think the rupee will start appreciating against the dollar?
It will, because the reason is that when your exports go up, your net quotient, as far as the rupee is concerned, is in a positive disposition. So this is one of the reasons why Modi ji is pursuing a policy of positioning and anchoring rupee, direct rupee trade with many countries. Japan has now agreed, UK has now agreed to do direct yen to rupee trade and British pound to rupee trade. And I think today we have about 19 countries and more than 30 banks have signed up we covered this Nostro accounts where they can trade. So at the end of the day, India would like Indian rupee to be not part of any basket, but to be a reserve currency in its own right. Just like you have Swiss francs, Japanese yen, British pound, euros, renminbi, and US dollar. I think Modi ji is pushing that, we like to be having a reserve currency in Indian rupees, which in turn will help to some of the points that you're alluding to, especially around the favorable position around the exchange rate if India can tilt the exports.
And India and United Kingdom are fairly well along signing a free trade agreement. And the United Kingdom would like to see the kind of benefit that Australia got in its free trade agreement with India. And Sridharji, give us a little bit of update on that. Is the relationship between the UK and the Indian government back on track after all that fracas that happened during the demonstrations?
Well, I think that I would say that the relationship is always has been on the track, but United Kingdom is also a very divided democracy. Because when you have a fairly even power between the Labour and the Liberals or the Conservatives, you have tensions. For example, London is ruled by Labour. Whereas the UK is ruled by Conservatives on a razor thin kind of a majority. Remember, they had to change two prime ministers before they could get Rishi Sunak. So the FTA agreement, they are saying Australia got very good deal, and we should get a similar kind of a deal. Remember, Australia has a lot of things that India needs. Coal, minerals. Adani has got infrastructure in Queensland and Western Australia, and he's warmly welcomed, notwithstanding all the controversy that people try to create around him. So, and also they have now extended this to education. And Australia is expanding its immigration policy, which is far more open. And we covered this in DGI, validating some of the academic credentials and so on. UK has always been a skeptic and, what shall I say, a reluctant partner in some of these things. So if they're demanding what Australia got, they better change their behavior in terms of what they will bring to bear on the table, Sriji.
We will wait and see, Sridharji. The Cambodian government has disclosed plans to develop an air defense center and expand its radar at Reem National Park near its naval base in Sihanoukville province. Could this be the first China overseas base in Indo-Pacific, sir?
It is. It is the first. They silently have been working. They don't have an anchor point. Remember, US has got footprint in Philippines, US has got footprint in Korea, US has footprint in Taiwan. So US has got, and US obviously Japan, Singapore, even Malaysia. So you have a number of points. And then, of course, when you look at the Malacca Strait and into Andaman and Car Nicobar Islands, you have the Indian. So they have been silently sending ships into the Indian Ocean effectively to monitor India on one side. South China Sea is obviously to contain Quad as well as the new Indo-Pacific Alliance and AUKUS. So the story is this is a significant development. Remember, we said that Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos are hand in glove. There's a direct train which runs from mainland China into Vientiane in Laos. This is the high-speed train, notwithstanding the fact there's not many passengers. They may use it for PLA, army movement. And then now you have got this Cambodian development, which is in the Remer National Park. So it's a very perfect. They're going to have not only the footprint, but also going to have radar capabilities to track movements around the South China Sea and Indian Ocean, Sriji.
Thank you, sir. And if I remember correctly, the Chinese gauge is not the same as broad gauge that is used prevalently in India, for example. So if China is able to run its train all the way down into Southeast Asian countries, there is going to be a challenge, sir, when India tries to link up with some of these lines.
I think India, the only way it will link up with what they call as the look east policy, which they have done already. The road is more or less developed. Apparently, in a lot of areas, the infrastructure still needs to going all around up to the edge of tip of Thailand. The road infrastructure is developed or semi-developed, so you can move trucks. But I just don't know whether they could. They have the capacity to develop as yet, because with all of their focus around building infrastructure in the Arunachal Pradesh and the LAC area, probably they will be satisfied with what they have rather than try and anything do around the train, Sriji.
Absolutely. And one must be careful here that, if one country is trying to bankrupt you by forcing you to build infrastructure, that is another concern that India needs to keep in mind. How many people are going to go to the, harsh environment like 15,000 feet above sea level, where things are very cold, but you have an excellent road that goes there. So these are all some of the considerations. How China is also, bankrupting itself is interesting. I'm also hearing some interesting news about CEOs being asked to come to China to make it look as if everything is okay with and in China as far as manufacturing activity is concerned. There is an update. I'm trying to get Elmer. You and stay focused. I mean, stay tuned. I will let you know as soon as I have him. We will talk about what is happening, how are things looking from the Chinese side. So we will give you an update on that also. So, sir, let's take a look at what's happening in North Korea. A lot of activity around its nuclear sites.
Yes, he has promised that he will develop his nuclear arsenal. I mean, he's obviously playing to the tune of, I would say, the Chinese. So it's the nuclear fuel. They see there's a lot of satellite images have picked up a tremendous amount of activities, and apparently he has said this is all with an expansion of, with an intent of expanding his stockpile.
And a lot of interesting things happening around G7. Evidently, the G7 has blessed Japan to buy oil at $60 a barrel from Big Bear, Russia. Sridharji, is this true?
Yeah, less than $60. $60 is the cap at less than $60. So when India got the exemption, and I think Japan said, "Look, we can't kind of annihilate ourselves." That's number one. I think the number two, there's a strategic agenda here, which is namely with imminent war, there's tremendous amount of fuel that is required in the event that Japan becomes an important member to fight. And we have been talking about the Special Defense Forces, the SDF of Japan, getting itself ready and also simulating a war game. Should there be X number of planes going on, what's the kind of damage that China and the Asian allies will take? So clearly, they believe. I mean, this whether you want to call them Indo-Pacific, the Korean Peninsula, or whether you want to call them Quad. Clearly, air war and drones is going to be one of the big strategic, what you call weaponry, that is our strategic battle force that is going to be used. So naturally, they're asking Japan, okay, go ahead and take the oil, Shriji.
And now India, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, everybody has gotten on the same page as far as managing high-end semiconductor chips. Sridharji, we have been talking about many foundries coming up, especially in America, some in Vietnam, perhaps even one in India. Kind of give us a good 20,000 foot level on where things stand now. Has Taiwan saved itself? In other words, TSMC now has enough diversification so that conquest of Taiwan is really a Pyrrhic victory for China.
It is evolving, and I think it's got a very good strategic plan. I think the opening up of the plants in Japan as well as in United States clearly is auguring well. I think they've got another one in the plants in Germany, in Europe. Obviously, the deal is not signed, but they're looking at India as well. So I think Taiwan is advancing and doing very well in terms of its diversification strategy. It's also the other important thing that is happening adjacent to G7 is that many of the G7 countries are now being told to stop supplying the chips to China, which goes into very strategic and critical elements of the Chinese war machine. And when Chinese foreign minister was in Beijing this weekend, he was persuaded by his counterpart, and no less than Xi Jinping also met him, to say, please don't fall into the Western trap, you're part of Asia. So therefore, don't fall in and don't become part of the chip blockade. So this diversification has got two elements. One is to augment its supply. Second is to move whatever manufacturing that's happening out of China. or reduce, because both Korea and Taiwan do manufacture in China. And the third is the diversification in the event of a war, Sriji.
And Belarus and Russia are again upping the ante, doing more drills together. That's one side. On the other side, Bashar al-Assad has been invited by Saudi Arabia. There's going to be a conference in May. Would that mean that Syria gets out of the isolation amongst the OIC and GCC, sir?
Absolutely. It's an OIC meeting. It is very symbolic and very strategic that they have invited Bashar al-Assad to attend this meeting in Riyadh. So you can see the realignment of forces. Iran has come back. Syria is coming back. Qatar is there. Turkey is sitting on the fence. UAE is the one which is still working alongside Allah. But UAE also visited Bashar al-Assad, primarily because I think Syria we'll touch on this shortly. Syria is also the footprint for the ISIS and various Islamic jihadi groups which are creating enough problem, as well as some of the renegade groups from Iran. How the OIC and Saudi will deal with this issue remains a very big question mark, Sriji.
Yes, indeed. And lastly, Israel continues to pound IRGC positions over the Syrian area. So you still have this conflict in play. And Siddharji, we can wrap up with that, sir. And please go ahead and give us an update on that.
Well, I think that they just had a recent attack. They've taken out the second commander. Just as we came into the news, United States confirmed that it has taken out an ISIS leader within Syria while he was in some kind of battle. So you can see simultaneous US and Israeli targeting of the Iranian, Hezbollah, and Islamic State targets within the Syrian region, which also tells you that beyond Damascus, Bashar al-Assad has no control over his country.
And Sridharji, if you have some time, we can take a few questions, sir.
Yeah, let's go.
So Raghurandan wants to know, China-USA war is not going to happen, but China will attack India. That is 100% sure. Your thoughts, sir?
Oh, I didn't say that. It's General Mark Milley said that the war is not imminent or inevitable. We have been saying that China is not going to keep quiet, and especially the two major flashpoints for China are Taiwan and India. So these two simultaneous fronts will happen, and China has not let its intensity on this a bit. All the activity that it is doing is following that, which made the national security of India chastise China and Pakistan at the SCO meet.
Next one. Hrithik Great wants to know, did USA sanction itself by sanctioning Russia, Iran, Venezuela? Do the petrodollar dominance coming to an end?
Climate agenda is coming to surface. So the new weapon, as far as United States is concerned, is the new energy, which is electronic vehicles and electronic and alternate sources of energy. Whether it will dominate as much as the petrodollar remains to be seen, I very much doubt. In fact, United States is, as you correctly said, is sanctioning itself, not sanctioning Russia, by cutting down all its production lines, cutting down the existing leases, and cutting down as well as the new leases that were on the anvil. This is a very, very inappropriate policy that United States has taken. By the way, it's also coming to our homes. We're not going to have gas. We're not going to have certain types of fuel consumed. So, they are walking right into our house, and how they are going to deconstruct themselves and us as citizens is a big question mark.
And I'm also hearing reports that the strategic petroleum reserve of US is down by a third.
2/3. Down by 2/3.
Oh my goodness. That means it's like 7 days or 5 days, something like that. I don't know. I don't want to get a number on that. What is left now? But that is a big concern. That is a big concern. These are huge caves underneath the ground where US has identified and stored all these things. If you keep taking it out, I don't know how that's going to get sorted out. Anyway, next question, please. Last question. Next question, please. Yeah, Partha wants to know, can this indictment ruling be challenged in the US Supreme Court?
They are actually, since we are here, I don't have the update. I'm told that they will seek dismissal immediately. There's no case because it has passed the time. Before 2016, there's no election, so they are asking for the dismissal of the case right away. It may not happen. It'll go, but eventually this is going to be knocked out. I would urge everybody to listen to President Trump interview later this evening from his Mar-a-Lago home.
And that brings us to a close of today's episode. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Follow Chityalaji at S Chityala. Follow me at Sri IR1. And you will get information as it happens. Just to give you an example, today pgurus.com published 10 stories. What we are covering is just one aspect. Those 10 or 9 of those stories probably are around what is happening inside India. Very important news. So we are doing our best to give you the latest, up-to-date, most accurate news. Thanks for watching us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please refer us to your friends and family. Thank you very much, Sridharji. We'll be back on Thursday. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Namaskar.